The first thing I do is pick up a close-up reference, like really close up so I can focus on the skin and skin only. This is a picture of Lee Jae-wook. So sad he and Karina broke up. I wish the both of them happiness in the future. I picked this picture because, first of all, Lee Jae-wook gorgeous. He has huge eye bags and freckles in this picture, and this is so much better than using smooth flawless skin as reference. I'll explain why in a minute. I will start with a dull color as our base. Normally I use grayscale, but for skin it's better to start with dull colors because it's easier to add more colors later on. For starters, I always use the airbrush to give volume to the skin and pinpoint the facial features. Oh god, he looks like the Invisible Man. I am quite terrified. Let me sketch his face real quick so he looks less psychopathic. Afterwards, switch to a hard brush to apply more prominent shadows. You can also use lasso tool for sharper edge. You can see how to do so in my previous videos. I forgot which ones and cannot be bothered. Anyway, use a hard brush in low opacity so the shadow is not overly sharp. It can be scary to have a dark shadow over the base skin, so using the low opacity brush can help you slowly build up the shadow. You can use any hard brush you like. I love using pencil graphite on Ibispaint because it has a faded tip, but a regular round brush also works well. I recommend not using textured brush because they are harder to control. Also, do you notice the faded shadows around his nose bridge? Using low opacity brush will help you achieve this look easily. These faded shadows are very important to create a realistic look to your painting because it gives depth and dimension, and it just looks so good. I don't know why, I like strange little things. I know Lee Jae-wook has blue eyes in the reference picture, but I'll keep the painting monochrome for the time being. I will also paint his hair really simply because today we'll be focusing on the skin, so screw everything else. Lee Jae-wook has an insane eye bags in this picture. That sounds like I'm making fun of him, but I really don't. I picked this picture especially because of the eye bags and the freckles because I find them quite aesthetic. Beginners generally avoid this quote-unquote skin blemishes because they might seem undesirable, but by practicing on them you can paint a more realistic looking skin. Always use low opacity brush so you can slowly build the shadows around the eye bags and paint them more naturally. Don't forget to alternate between dark and light colors. Oh, almost forgot. Don't forget about midtones as well. If you don't know what that is, just look at this image. I'll give you 3 seconds. Or you can just pause. Anyway, the reason I'm keeping the painting monochrome is so that we can focus on the shading and rendering rather than the colors, because too many colors will distract you, and I'm quite easily distracted. I might have ADHD, I should get myself checked. I will draw the facial features with darker colors to accentuate his nose and lips. A lot of beginners usually have troubles when drawing the nostrils, making it too big or too dark. Again, use low opacity brush. I will repeat this until you get tired of it. It's also a good idea to use dark red instead of black so the nostrils don't look too thick. I know he's supposed to have freckles, but I will refrain myself from drawing it before we add more colors, because as beautiful as they are, freckles are also quite distracting. To add colors, we will use something called, blending modes. You can find them under layers. There are a shit ton of blending modes, but I only use 4 on a daily basis. First is multiply to add deeper shadows. Next is overlay to add lighter and more saturated colors. I normally use this to add makeup to the face. Third one is add to add highlights. Sometimes it's too strong, so proceed with caution. And the last one is color, to add more colors without screwing all the shadings and rendering we worked so hard to create. You can experiment with all the blending modes to see which one suits your taste. Every drawing app generally has similar blending modes, so you can use whatever you want. Oh, and before I forgot, I want to apologize for the lack of upload lately. I'm currently pursuing my education in a country where it requires more effort to upload YouTube videos, so yeah, apologies. The cakes here are really delicious, by the way. I always start with multiply and add deeper shadows using airbrush. Because my painting is quite yellow at the moment, I will use colors with red overtones to balance the color. The painting might lose its definition because I'm using airbrush, so as with everything in life, proceed with caution. By the way, I posted a speed paint of this painting, and a lot of people thought I drew Felix from Stray Kids. I think I can see why. Now using overlay, we will add some colors so he doesn't look very anemic. Overlay will make the colors more saturated, so you can pick dull colors from the color wheel. I like adding red on the eye bags because it makes the portrait more adorable and a lot less like Toshio from The Grudge. The painting is not finished without the highlights. Now I normally use the add layer because it has a glow effect, but I think it would look too much for this painting, so I'm just gonna use normal layer instead. People tend to go overboard with highlights and get super oily skin in the end, so it's best to add the highlights gradually. Start with slightly lighter color and zoom out your painting to see if it looks natural, and then use an even lighter color to add stronger highlights. Now let's witness the power of color. the blending mode, not the electromagnetic radiation of wavelengths. I will start with the eyes. As you can see, I can add a different color to the painting while still keeping all the shadings intact. If you were to use a normal layer, it will cover up the original painting below it. I also use this layer to add more colors to the painting, especially for the makeup. I also like to add blue on top of the shadows because I don't know why, but it's such a game changer and you should try it. Just add it on the nose or something. His eyes look like a dead fish, so let's give them some life. Oh wait, this isn't an eye tutorial, so let's just skip to the highlights. Boy, that's satisfying. Don't worry, I didn't forget about the freckles, it just slipped my mind a little. I'm using a brush called Sequin pen, and apparently this is what you call a sequin, and just looking at it gave me a skin rash and a terrible itch. I'm using multiply layer to add freckles, and I alternate between soft eraser and smudge here and there to make it more natural. Afterwards, I duplicate the layer and move it slightly to make more freckles. I forgot to record it, but I use unsharp mask filter in the end to make the painting sharper, and that's about it. I am off to have a date with Arlecchino, so toodles!